Um, Alrighty. So let's begin with this. Last week, when we were talking, we covered a lot of ground, actually. Covered quite a bit of ground. Matter of fact, I covered a lot of ground on TikTok as
Oh
well.
my God, did you post that? That was amazing.
Yeah, yeah. The raising the Son of Man.
Yes,
It was that hour and a half video.
that was amazing.
Yep, yep. I posted that on YouTube. If anyone wants to go back and watch that, I don't have anyone come up there, so I don't get perturbed or frustrated at all with anyone. So uh there's that. And I think I covered a lot of ground with Golam from Scriptural Truth as well when it comes to her views. It just the problem I have with some channels and people, you got to use the whole counsel of the Bible. And if you're going to sit there and say that there's two Jesuses or whatever the case may be, you have to be consistent on your views. All right. You can't sit there and say, well, you know what? I believe in the Gospels, but there's only certain pieces of the Gospels I believe in. And if this doesn't line up or make sense, I'm going to go ahead and just rip it out. All right. That's where I got a problem. And when Jesus tells you multiple times within the scriptures, let's start with this first off. The kingdom of God is within you. All right. First off, what we're going to do today is we're going to go to some scriptures, okay, about the kingdom being within. Actually, matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we're going to jump straight into this. By the way, you guys, I want to let you know I am actually in I am right now in the process of a project that I'm doing. I'm trying to figure out a way to make 3D models on like a presentation, and where you can click on it, it will go straight to the point on that 3D model, and then it will pull up like a description. I'm doing this with like the skull and like the human anatomy of the body because it's all going to encompass the entire process and idea of the kingdom of God within. In other words, it's going to be really really neat. I gotta if I can't figure this out, I'm gonna get someone to help me do this because I got the picture in my head already. I thought of it last night. Yeah, exactly, Banzai. Like a map of information. Exactly. So when you got the skull up, it turns to like a 3D point of view, and within the skull, there's two seraphim, and between the two seraphim is like the throne room of God between the eye. It's I have the whole picture in my head. It's just a matter of putting the whole idea and everything together now. Um I'm going to be working on that. It's going to be something like people have never seen before. So uh anyways, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to jump into some scriptures on the kingdom of God being within. And as we do this, we're going to go into quite a few different things. All right. So first and foremost, let's let's start with this basis. Okay. Mark chapter 4, verse 11. Can everyone see my screen, by the way?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Mark chapter 4, verse 11. What does Jesus say? All right. And when he was alone, they that were about him with the 12 asked him the parable. And the parable that it's talking about the sower, the good ground seed, the thorny seed, wayside seed, and the thorny seed. Okay, he's talking about these different types of people that will have the kingdom message, but some will walk away, and a bunch of stuff is going on here. But this isn't a message that's talking about so much of a collective level as it is an individual level. Whenever you look at the scriptures, the biblical narrative, it's a living word. This is the living book. So if it's a living book, it's not telling you about a history, okay? history is always going to be there. And if we don't get it right, history is always going to repeat itself. Okay. There's nothing new under the sun. Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 9. All right. So what we have to do is we have to get to the point where we manifest the kingdom within, where we take the message of Christ, put it within us, and then we clean the inside of the cup so that the outside may be clean. All right. So in verse 11, this is what it says. And I want you guys just to stick with this verse, because this verse right here, if there was any verse I would say to heed to, this would be it. And he said unto them, unto you, the apostles, it is given to know the mystery of the kingdom of God. But unto them that are without, all these things are done in parables. Okay? That seeing they may see and not perceive, in hearing they may hear and not understand, lest at any time they should be converted and their sins should be forgiven them. What is their sins? Sin is always a representation of the lower consciousness, the emotions, okay? It's the things that get in the way, that try to knock you out of the way from the spiritual nature, okay? It could be your intellect, it could be your desires, it could be that tries to keep you from the kingdom message of casting your net to the right side of the boat. Because when you cast your net to the right side of the boat, what you're doing is you're a fisher of men, and what will end up happening is you're going to bring up a bunch of different thoughts. And this is exactly what the parable of the dragnet is about. Actually, matter of fact, if we look at this, if the message is a mystery, what is a mystery? You can go look at it in the Greek. It's the word, it's a cryptic message. It's a cryptic meaning. It's a secret. Okay. So when people want to sit here and say, oh yeah, Jesus never spoke in parables or anything of that. He never spoke to some people that were highly advanced or about. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. There were crowds and multitudes that found him. And then he had his 70 disciples. Then he had his 12 disciples. Then he had an inner three. All right. So clearly he's speaking a message that only some can understand. And this is the problem here, because if he is speaking in a cryptic way of talking, how else would he be able to explain this? Would he sit there and say, "Oh yeah, if you go 3 ribs up, you're gonna find the pale horse," or if you go to the left side of your mind on in the left brain hemisphere at the farthest place, it's like what? How could he ever? He couldn't explain things that way. How could he? So what they're doing is, and what the ancients are doing is, they're taking stories about mankind and they're forming them in such a way that is explainable within a myth to understand the human body in quantum physics. All right. It's actually a really beautiful thing when we look at it. And it's, if anyone wants to understand it, they can, but you have to be seeking for these things. So, okay. Now, this is the first and foremost scripture we need to look at. Okay. This scripture right here is very important to look at. Luke 17, 20 and 21. And when he was demanded of the Pharisees when the kingdom of God should come, he answered them and said, the kingdom of God cometh not with observation. Neither shall he say, lo here or lo there, for behold, the kingdom of God is within you. Some people try to sit there and say, oh, that's new age jibber jabber that you're talking about, saying that the kingdom of God is within you. Well, here's the thing. What they'll end up saying is that, oh, yeah, the original Greek says that the kingdom of God is within your midst. Okay. So let's say that is the case. All right. Let's say that is the case. It still doesn't negate the other 10 scriptures where he talks about a kingdom within you. All right. And we're going to go through a couple of those scriptures. All right. And then there's some people that will sit there and say, well, every single time I'm talking about the kingdom within, it's the Christ. But make it make sense, because, when we talk about it just baffles my mind because Matthew 23, Jesus is saying, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites," and it's a continuation of Matthew 24. Because from Matthew 23, he jumps into a sermon that he gives to his disciples on Matthew 24. So if Matthew 23 is talking about a different Jesus than Matthew 24, it doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense when you try to look at it and you try to harmonize everything. There's no harmony. So, and the thing is, God is not an author of confusion. And this is the way we make the cohesive story, the operation of the whole scriptures. So the kingdom does not come with observation. If you go to the Greek, it's careful or physical observation. Okay. Careful or physical observation. It's telling you that this message is a message that can only start on the inside and only be brought to the forefront. Okay. That's first and foremost.
There's a harmony of scripture then, like the kingdom of God's within. So that just means it's harmonizing the scripture. Like I love harmonizing the scripture if it's the kingdom of God within.
Exactly, Ali. Exactly. There has to be a harmony of
Even in the Old Testament, it's harmony in the Old Testament as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all these stories are parables. That's what they are. They're stories that are history. You see, what happens is if we don't get it right, of course it will play on a historical standpoint. I mean, that's what we get with World War I, World War II, World War III. But you have to understand that these wars are also geoengineered. They're man-made manipulation, but they're also manifestations in the hands of the elite. All right. And matter of fact, let's just tell it straight up the way it is. We have manifested these things. Okay. We have done this. All right. No one's to sit here and be ousted out of this because we're the ones that gave into the deception of these pastors and these leaders that keep on saying, "Oh, Jesus is coming soon." But the truth of it is that he wants us to be the solution to this world. And guess what? If there's a guy that shows up that sits there and says, "I am the Messiah," be careful. That's all I'm saying. Because if he sits there and ousts everyone out and says, "Oh, I'm the Messiah, but no one else is," or anything of that nature, then you need to really be careful with that.
Yeah.
Because the man may have a lot of knowledge, he may have a lot of revelation and everything, but guess what? He said, "Father, I pray that as you and I are one, the church will be one with us." He said, "Pick up your cross, die daily unto yourself and follow me." Luke 9:23. All right. He tells you straight up the way the wars and rumors of wars are going to begin. It's because everyone's going to point their finger towards him, say, "Oh, he's the Messiah. He's the one that's supposed to bring the kingdom and everything." But we're going to look at him as our solution. It's like he said, "Be the light of the world." He said, "You are the light of the world. A city that is set upon a hill cannot be hid." Matthew 5:14. So everyone wants to sit here and place it on someone else, just like they do with Satan as well. They do this with Satan. They're like, "Oh, Satan made me do it. It was that spirit that made me do it." No, it wasn't. It was your flesh. It was your flesh that made you do it. And here's the truth of the matter. You want to put the blame on someone else, but the truth is you are the one that needs to get your act together. All right. That goes for all of this. That goes for me as well. I am not, I'm not saying anyone's outside. This is everyone. Okay. All right. So when looking at all this and when putting it together, even if this message wasn't talking about a kingdom message, we still have an issue. Because let's go to John chapter 4 now. John chapter 4, Jesus is talking to the Samaritan woman. What does he say? First off, let's see what the Samaritan woman says. "Our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and you say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Jesus saith unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh, when you shall neither in this mountain, nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. You worship you know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews." What is he speaking about with salvation being of the Jews, though? All right. Okay. This is one thing we need to realize and understand with this. Salvation would be of the Jews because the message that they were supposed to bring was a kingdom within message. This is what the prophets brought. This is what the different kings brought that were righteous before God, because they knew that this message was internal. But it was Israel, it was some of the people in the Bible that decided to make it literal and external. All right. Matthew 21, if we look at Matthew chapter 21 in the parable of the husbandman, it says God sent servants or prophets to Israel, and they unalived them, they stoned them, they killed them. But finally, what would happen when God would send his son? All right. John, you're gonna have to mute, man. You're echoing a little bit. All right. Let me go ahead and all right, there we go. All right. So what ends up happening here is God would send the prophets, God would send these people because they would tell Israel what they were supposed to do. All right. But they didn't want to listen to them. All right. Salvation was of the Jews because they had the original message of salvation of a kingdom within message. Just like Exodus 19:6 says. It was supposed to be a kingdom message, a message that was brought to everyone, and ultimately was the standpoint that the kingdom of God was within you. This is why it says, have no other gods before me. Okay, so if you're not to have any gods before you, and it says, don't make an image of God above that's above the heavens, on the earth, or under the earth, in the seas. Okay, well, where would God have to dwell if he's not on the earth, in the heavens, or under the earth? Where would he have to dwell? He'd have to dwell within you. That's the only place that the message could be speaking about. It would have to be within. So when it says have no other gods before me, it's talking about the God that's living within you. That's why Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Because the only way to truly love someone is by loving yourself first. And I know people will say, oh, that's narcissistic.
I always believe that. And there's most people are going to say, oh, well, that's a worldly thing to say, but it's not.
No, not at all. You have to love yourself in order to love other people. That's why we're running
That's in a
around.
Barb group, and they said I'm a devil worshipper. As soon as I said the sun that rises up within us, they didn't like it.
Of course they don't. But the truth.
And when I said that, the kingdom God's within, like heaven's within, I had this question asked to me in the Barb group. Well, have you been to the literal kingdom? I said, no, not literal. It's in particles of the spiritual kingdom. They didn't want to hear that either. They said I'm a devil worshipper. All of them.
Yep. Here's the problem, and this is the way our world works. The sun rises in the east, right here. The sun sets in the west. The entire message, if anything, it's that the sun rises and the sun sets. That's it. That's the message. The sun will set in the darkness, but the sun will rise back up. It is the story of our creation. It is the story of every single day of our walk in our life. The positive cannot work without the negative. The proton cannot work without the electron. Just like in the story of Adam and Eve. Adam is Atum of the Egyptians. What happens is the atom is a representation of the particle, the first atom. But we're not saying that just because there's a name similarity. If you look at how Adam was actually sleeping in the garden and Eve was pulled out of his rib, through this process, what ends up happening? There's a multiplication of the people. Now you have a man and a woman, and that's only when the serpent can enter the garden. All right. But what happens? The multiplication of 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16, 16 becomes 32, so on and so forth. Just like the particle, the atom, what happens with an atom? An atom is split. And when the atom is split, like Eve was taken out of the rib of Adam, when the atom is split, an electron is pulled out. It magnifies the energy in the atom. When the electron is pulled out, it becomes 2, and then 2 become 4, 4 become 8, 8 becomes 16, so on and so forth. It's not the name why they're called Adam and Adam. It's the function of the atom. All right. And this is, I mean, we see this all over the scriptures. It's almost like they're trying to speak to us on quantum physics terms within this. What they're trying to tell us is this, is that don't think with your intellect over here on the left side. Your intellect is on the west side. On the east side is where Judah lies, where the spiritual side is, where the white horse lies, where the conqueror lies. And just like in nature, the sun rises on the east and the sun will set on the west. And that's when the moon comes out. That's when darkness comes out because it's the blackness. All right. I hope that this is making sense for you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, basically, dualistically, yeah, we'll make peace from our duality. We all have that.
We all have to make peace with duality. Exactly.
So it's just like in Mark chapter 4, in verse where Jesus spoke to the parables to those who seek the kingdom outside of themselves. But to him it's given those who seek the kingdom of God within, right? He explains it in details, doesn't he? Now
Yes.
the parables, I could say they're nothing more than just stories that are in the Old Testament.
Yes. Yes. That's it. Yeah, even the story about Jesus being on, it's mitosis. All these stories are about cell division. It's about mitosis. It's about microbiology. It's all in here. It's absolutely mind blowing. You don't need to read a Bill Nye the Science Guy or anything. You could read the Bible and you could get the exact same story about science within this book. This book is a book of science. That's what it is. It's science, quantum physics, microbiology, so on and so forth. So
is that quantum energy to do with quantum physics to do with quantum energy balance
say
of
that one more time, Ollie. Say that
Sorry?
one more time. Say that one more time.
Is that science and energy to do the energy and their photons are to do with quantum energy, like balance of non-binary codes of noughts and ones, and the energy within, and so is energy without, like the sound waves and all that.
Yes, energy can't be destroyed. It can only be transmuted, which is why when we look at things like Jesus up on the mountain in Matthew 17, during the transfiguration event, he transforms into a second coming form. Well, this mountain was in Caesarea Philippi. They actually say that this was Mount Hermon. So, in actual reality, what he was doing is the fallen angels made the pact on Mount Hermon, according to the book of Enoch. So, when Jesus is transforming into a second coming form, what he's doing is he's not destroying the mountain, he's actually transmuting the energy of the mountain. Okay. So, he's taking the pact of the fallen angels at Mount Hermon, he's transforming it into a second coming form because what he's doing is he's transforming the energy into something good, right? That's why it says, as far as the lightning strikes from the east to the west, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. The east, look at that, to the west. The east, the spiritual, is going to overrun the intellect. And when that happens, that's when the coming of the Son of Man will happen. No, notice what you see. People can't like explain this stuff through like trying to say physical things. Oh, what they'll tell you is that, oh yeah, Jesus is going to come from the east, then he's going to go ahead and just circle the entire globe all the way to the west. It's like that's not what this is talking about. This is talking about something
About the
so
hemispheres of your brain.
Yes, exactly. It's within you. So this
When you
is
think of spiritual things, that comes from the right hemisphere of your brain, like because of the pineal gland.
right, right. Well, on the right, where this is on the right side, what will happen is when the veil was torn, the arachnid's web, now it gives access to the right side, but the right side of the brain will now overrun everything, and now you'll transform from the from the bottom going all the way down, and then it will come back to the top. This is why in Song of Solomon it actually says that there's flowers now on the earth, which is the lower consciousness. Then the birds will sing, and the turtle will be heard, because reconciliation between flesh and spirit and self within it. Okay.
Right. What verse are we on now? Where it says,
John 4.
John 4. Right.
So I'm just actually trying just to share a couple of Kingdom Within message verses, and we got off on that and stuff. But so salvation is of the Jews, because a Jew is one inwardly, not outwardly. Okay. A Jew is one inwardly. A Jew has nothing to do with race or anything of that nature. Okay. That's why it says, fear not, for Jesus, the Lion from the tribe of Judah, will conquer. Because Judah is this right here. It's the spiritual side. Salvation is of the Jews. Salvation is of the East. Salvation is of the spiritual. Salvation of the white horse. Okay? It's not trying to tell you and single some friggin' people out. Some religious leaders that sat there and thought they knew what they were talking about. But anyways, verse 23. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshiper shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh such to worship him. Okay. So Jesus just told the Samaritan woman, you're not going to worship in this mountain or at Jerusalem. You're going to worship the Father. All right. Okay. You're going to worship the Father. Now, let's jump to John 5 here. You're going to worship the Father. Now, let's see what Jesus says. Then answered Jesus and said unto them, verily, verily, I say unto you, the Son can do nothing of himself, but what he seeth the Father do. For what things soever he doeth, these also doeth the Son likewise. Wait a minute. The Son can't do anything of himself? This is letting you know right here. Jesus is trying to tell you that, hey, guys, I'm not some super freaking natural being that's come to planet Earth that makes you different from me. The only way I access my power and the understanding I have is because I come into contact with the Father and the Mother. They took that out. The Holy Mother, Sophia. So what ends up happening here is he's trying to tell you here, hey, I'm not something special. I'm trying to tell you, you have the same power within you if you will just activate this power. All right?
Right, the Son can't do nothing of himself, but he that seeth the Father do, and the Mother do. For what things whatsoever he doeth, these also doeth the Son likewise.
Mm-hmm.
So the Son is S-U-N, and it sits in the just below your heart chakra, the Son of Man.
Right. Well, you have the
Son of person would rise up within you.
For check this out. For as the Father hath life in himself, so hath he given to the Son to have life in himself. It always starts with the Father and the Mother. It's never about Jesus, the flesh. It's about what's inside. He tells you it's not what's on the outside that defiles someone. It's something on the inside that defiles them. And then he tells you here, and hath given him authority to execute judgment also, because he is the Son of Man. Okay. Later on, he sits there and tells you that his judgment, he doesn't judge anyone. You will judge yourself, because the judgment starts with the Son of Man. Because where's the Son of Man? It's not the Son of Man, S-U-N-O, Son of Man here. Okay. The judgment, what happens is it sits between the 7 chakras, and there's 3 below, 3 above. And what will happen is the dying of the Son of Man for the 3 days, it will actually descend the 3 chakras, go into your belly. It will hit the root chakra. It will take that, it will transmute it, and then it will shoot it back upwards. The judgment happens at the lowest point. And what will end up occurring? As lightning strikes from the east to the west, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. So in that presence, the chakras arise. It strikes from the east, hits to the west. Next thing you know, you put on the mind of Christ. That is the Son of Man. All right. So now that was the next verse I wanted to show you about the kingdom message. Let's go to Matthew 23. Matthew 23, verse 13. What does Jesus say? But woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites. You know what a hypocrite is in Greek? Stage actor. It's a stage actor. It's someone that actually sits there and they're putting on a play. In other words, Jesus knew they were going to do this. He knew that they were going to put on a play. Just like you should know that Israel, with what they're doing over there in the Middle East, with the Palestinians and all this stuff, I'm not saying anyone's not getting hurt, because there's a lot of people, a lot of innocent people getting hurt over there. What I'm trying to tell you is this, is that these people are a bunch of liars. That's Netanyahu. That's included. You see, what's going to happen with Donald Trump for a time, there's going to be some good things that happen. But ultimately, Donald Trump is actually a Zionist. All right. He's a Zionist, first and foremost. In Florida, Robert DeSantis, he's a Noahide. There's a lot of stuff going on here, a lot of pieces at play. They're actually going to take the Democrats out in order to put up a new light, but it's going to be a false light. And it's going to be a light that's worse than the first. All right. And it's going to be a Zionist agenda. They've been planning this for about 200 years now. All right. And it started with a man named William Blackstone, first and foremost, John Nelson Darby, and C.I. Schofield. All right. Rockefellers and Rothschilds as well. So they're a bunch of stage actors. They know exactly what they're doing. All right. Matter of fact, here's the thing. My first series on YouTube was called The Zionist Deception and the Seed of the Viper. This was a while back. I'm just now, within the past couple of weeks, I'm getting banned on those videos right now. I'm getting communication guideline bans right now for hate speech. Right now.
Speech about what?
Huh?
Hate speech about what?
Oh my God. Ali, if you go listen to those videos, I'm not saying so much hate speech as it is more I'm telling the truth on these videos. Stuff. This was like from about 4 years ago, I think.
Oh, right.
So these videos right here, I'm actually talking about this, and now they're coming against me on these videos. So I might have to just take those videos down at this point.
Off on YouTube.
On YouTube, yep. Yep.
Yeah, but the thing is, you're exposing the truth for what it is. So I don't understand why these people are saying, "Oh, it's hate speech against Jews." Oh, snowflakes.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It's crazy, but yeah, they're just now coming against me. I don't understand how they just figured it out now. So, all right. Anyways, let's go ahead and keep on going though. So Jesus is calling them hypocrites because they're stage actors. They're going to write a play up. They're going to make it look like it's happening, but they're a bunch of liars. All right. Matter of fact, that's what a lawyer is. A lawyer is a liar. All right. A lot of lawyers
surprised me that the Barabbas are Jewish elite.
Well, I would say so, actually. I think they have good intentions on certain fronts, but when they want a literal kingdom, the problem is that Jesus says that, hey, why do you guys keep on thinking I'm going to bring something literal? What? Like, if I
Because
was...
they sound awful like evangelical Christians, don't they, those Barabba groups?
Yes. Yes,
And
they do. It's just that they're using a different name. They say, "Oh, you better not call him the Christ." That's not a good name right there.
yeah,
All it means is
and
anointed.
exactly. And they just don't get it. And I think they come up with all sorts of shit. They accuse you of being accuser, and yet they're the ones that accusing your father of as being a Jesuit.
I'm just all we're trying to do is we're trying to go through the harmony of Scripture. But
Yeah.
so let's look at this. All right. You shut up the kingdom of heaven against men, for ye neither go in yourselves, neither suffer ye them that are entering to go in. Okay. Whoa. That's interesting. I ain't talking about no gold city up in the north. That's talking about something that's happened right then and there in that day. Jesus is saying that you have access to this kingdom right now, and yet you don't go in. It's not something that's coming. It's not a golden city that's coming out of the sky. You're not going in right now. You shut the kingdom of heaven against men. You don't go in, neither you let anyone else go into the kingdom of heaven. Then 2 verses later, you know they want to ban this chapter, right? Matthew 23. They actually want to ban this chapter out of the Bible because they say it's hate speech. All right. They say it's hate speech. So Jesus is sitting here telling them this. They want to ban this because they know a lot of people can catch on to the Zionist agenda because of this chapter. This one chapter right here can show you everything with the Zionist deception. All right. Woe, verse 15. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you devour widows' houses. For you compass sea and land to make one proselyte. And when he is made, you make him twofold more the child of hell than yourselves. You're going to compass sea and land. You're going to go ahead and go through. You'll get out of Israel. You'll go to the other side of the world. And you'll take someone and you'll transform them into your literal doctrine of the Pharisees. And then they're going to become a twofold child of hell than what you already are, because that person in that distant land can now spread their doctrine, which they believe is truth, to the other people around them. And the only thing that they're bringing is hell on earth. Yeah. You see these dispensationalists, these different ones that sit there and say, oh, Jesus is coming. It's all physical and all this stuff. They're actually spreading hell on earth because they're making it physical. They're not cleaning the inside of the cup. They're waiting for some man to show up and save them. All right. That's what Jesus is speaking about here. He's telling them straight up, you're going to become a twofold child of hell. You're going to make a twofold child of hell than what you already are in yourselves. Because when you look at the literal doctrine of Scripture, it's focusing on lower consciousness. And the lower consciousness is a representation of that man. All right. The number 666 is actually the number of carbon-12. 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons. It's atoms. Goes back to atoms. Look at that. It's talking about the flesh. All right. So then what you will get is through a literal doctrine being spoken is that basically what we live in today. But fear not, because Jesus tells us right here in Luke 22 that it's going to happen. What does he say?
And it's the spirit that gives life. Spirit of flesh.
It's the spirit that gives life to the flesh. Yes, has to start on the inside. Verse 10, and he said unto them, behold, when you are entered into the city, there shall a man meet you, bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him into the house where he entereth in. And you shall say unto the good man of the house, the master saith unto thee, where is the guest chamber, where I shall eat the Passover with my disciples? And he shall show you a large upper room furnished, there make ready. Okay. Now, I want you to think about something. In Mark 4:11, it just said Jesus speaks nothing outside of a parable to the common folks. The mysteries of the kingdom are given to those who actually will understand the message. What is this story talking about? A man bearing a pitcher of water and entering into a house. Do we think that it's a literal story, or it's telling us something more highly advanced because it's a living book?
Age of
Huh? Yep.
the Age of Aquarius. Yeah.
Yep. Age of Aquarius. Yep. Behold, when you are entered into the city, there shall a man meet you bearing a pitcher of water. Yep. Age of Aquarius. So this is why I try not to get frustrated anymore with the Zionists and the dispensationalists and all this, because this verse right here kind of gives me a little bit more peace because it wasn't going to happen until the age of Aquarius. All this was going to transpire. It couldn't happen before then. But it's let's put it this way. A lot of people are going to change their tune. And I think a lot of people already have, especially with what's gone on over there in Israel and Palestine, based on last year around October 6th, with the whole Gaza and Hezbollah bit and all that stuff. It's all fake. It's all lies. All right. It's everything. You can't trust anything on the damn news with what's going on over there. I mean, even the P. Diddy scandal coming out now. Oh, not even the beginning. There's going to be a whole hell of a lot more coming out with all these actors and everything. I remember being in Arizona a couple of years back in 2020. I went to Arizona. I went to Sedona. What happened is I ran into someone that was actually a photographer out there. They actually lived in California beforehand, about 4 to 5 months before they moved out to Arizona. And I asked them if it was true what was going on out in Hollywood, because there was a lot of that QAnon stuff going on out there back in 2020 and stuff. They said, yeah, it was true. That's actually why I moved here, as it is, because they said that there were helicopters, different ones that were surrounding the homes of like celebrities and all this stuff going on. I was like, wow. I was like, they're like, yeah, it was all real. All this stuff was going on, and the news was trying everything that they could to cover all this up, as it is. What's going to happen is a lot more people are going to. This is going to happen to a lot more people. Even Ashton Kutcher. Ashton Kutcher was involved, I guess, and when P. Diddy was arrested, he actually fled the country. All right. Ashton Kutcher actually fled, but there's going to be a lot of people that are involved with all this, a lot. But here's the thing. What it's going to do is it's going to clean the system up for a little bit. And a lot of people are going to think that this is the true light, but this is going to only follow into another deception, a more massive deception, a deception of Kabbalah. This Zohar right here, it talks about how they want to wipe out all the Christians. All right. It talks about how two messiahs are going to come forward with Moses, and then they're going to wipe out all of Christianity. All right.
Oh my.
Huh?
Through black magic.
Yeah, but it's like black versus white magic. Exactly. All right. Black.
The Zionist agenda.
Yes. Now, I'm not saying that all Jews are bad. That's not what I'm saying by any stretch of the imagination. There are good Jewish people, okay, that want harmony and want love on earth. I'm talking about the Zionists. I'm talking about the ones that are in the upper echelon of the governments, the elite, like Benjamin Netanyahu, for instance. Netanyahu's name means prepare the way for Yahweh. All right. That's what his name means, Netanyahu. So they know what they're doing and what they're putting at the forefront. So the thing is, we got to keep on trying to help people to wake up. But this man with the pitcher of water, bearing the pitcher of water, this is the age of Aquarius. This is the man with the pitcher of water. Follow him into the house where he entereth in. The house is talking about you, your kingdom within. This man, the man with the pitcher of water, he is the water bearer. He's the one that gives you the knowledge, the revelation, the understanding. Entereth into the house, but don't stay in the bottom chamber. Go into the upper chamber. Okay? Go into the upper chamber where there's a large upper room, furnished. There, make ready. Okay. All right. So now that we can see the kingdom of God message is something true, and Jesus spoke about it. Matthew 23:26. Let's go to that. All right. Matthew chapter 3, 23:26. Thou blind Pharisee, cleanse first that which is within the cup and platter, that the outside of them may be clean also. Okay. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like unto whited sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead men's bones and of all uncleanliness. Okay. If that's not speaking about something on the inside of you, I don't know what is. All right. All right. Then on top of that, for I say unto you, you shall not see me henceforth till ye shall say, blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. All right. And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, see ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. All right. So his disciples came to him, showing him the building of the temple. Oh, man, isn't this beautiful, Lord? I mean, look at this. I mean, it's decked out with gold and silver. This is the place where our ancestors worship. Jesus is like, guys, this temple's coming down. All right. This temple is coming down. Why are you guys even looking at this temple right now? So now we can see that he's speaking about a religious temple coming down, the physical temple, because the physical temple is where religion dwells. All right. So where would the other temple be? Where is the spiritual temple? It's us. Our body is that temple that holds and hosts the Holy Ghost, Holy Spirit. But it's not just like random people that have the Holy Spirit. Everyone does. They just have to wake up to it. No one's out of this. And here's the thing. When people sit there and say, oh, I'm the truth. Oh, thank you, Lord, for showing me the truth. And this pulper over here, yeah, he doesn't know what he's talking about and stuff. It's like, we got to look at that. Everyone's going to wake up. Everyone's going to have their day. It just may not be right now. All right. This is just the beauty of the entire message. So, can we agree that the kingdom of God is within you?
They just assume we're eating at the hot dog stand. Why are you wearing a
My goodness. All right. Can we agree that the kingdom of God is within you if it's speaking about these things?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So now what we have to do is that if that is the case and it doesn't dwell on one man, and that one man tells you straight up that, hey, I can't do anything of my own will. All right. It's the Father that gives me the power to do it. It's the mother that gives me the power to do it. Hey, everything that I do, you're going to be able to do greater works. All right. If he's telling you this, don't, and then it tells you he came to free his brothers and sisters. It's like, wait a minute, how are we his brothers and sisters if he's basically someone completely different from us? He isn't. We all have the consciousness of God within us. People just try to single him out. That's all. All right. So now what we do is we can go to Matthew chapter 13. Now that we understand he spoke nothing but parables, let's go to Matthew chapter 13 and let's read verse. Oh, goodness, where the heck is that? The parable of the dragnet. Okay, here we go. So when, oh my goodness. All right. Try this. Really? You gotta be kidding me. Okay, there's a furnace of fire, treasure hid in a field. Okay, here we go. Oh, net. There we go. Verse 47. Again, okay. Now remember what we just said in Matthew 23:13. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites. You don't allow people to enter into the kingdom of heaven. Neither you go in yourselves. So the kingdom of heaven is something that's within you. Okay. If the kingdom of heaven is something that's within you, what is being spoken about with the kingdom of heaven here? Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a net that was cast into the sea and gathered of every kind. All right. So let's think about this. Kingdom of heaven within, like unto a net that is thrown down and cast into the sea. The sea is a representation of your lower consciousness, your lower emotions. All right. This is why in the book of Revelation, the beast comes out of the sea in Revelation 13. Because the beast that's coming out of the sea is coming out of your lower emotions, okay? It's trying to rise up with 7 deadly heads. The 7 deadly heads is what Mary Magdalene actually had when Jesus had to cast 7 demons out of her to replace it with the 7 virtues, the 7 candlesticks, the 7 stars, the 7 churches, which the 7 stars or the angels are the angles of light that must hit the communication centers or the chakras to give them light in order to rise up. Remember, Jesus says that Nathaniel, the angels of God will ascend and descend upon the Son of Man. All right? Ascension and descension upon the Son of Man. The Son of Man stands among the 7 golden candlesticks. So the kingdom of heaven, like unto a net that was being cast into the sea, is being cast into your lower emotions, is being cast into the inner depths of your inner being, your consciousness. And when it's pulled out, every kind of fish, every kind of creature is actually gathered, because it's going to be good things and bad things, because like this says, which when it was full, they drew to shore and sat down and gathered the good into vessels, but cast the bad away. All right. So net being thrown down into the sea, lower emotions, understanding a lower consciousness is being pulled up. There's good things that are being rooted up. There's bad things that are being rooted up. The bad things are cast away. Good things are kept. Eat the meat, spit out the bones, in other words. And what does it say? So shall be at the end of the world. The angels shall come forth and sever the wicked from among the just, and shall cast them into the furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Where does this verse come in, wailing and gnashing of teeth? All right. First off, we know that the kingdom of heaven is within you. All right. So we can't sit here and try to make this literal, because if the kingdom of heaven is within you, then this whole message is speaking about something that's within you. So this furnace of fire that's going on here, what the heck is this furnace of fire? And why does it say wailing and gnashing of teeth? Well, let's go back to Matthew chapter 8, because he speaks pretty clearly about the wailing and gnashing of teeth. Matthew chapter 8, verse 11. And I say unto you, that many shall come from the east and west, and shall sit down with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. All right, kingdom of heaven. But the children of the kingdom shall be cast out into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Okay? So now, let's think about this. If the kingdom of heaven is within you, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob would be in the kingdom of heaven, but the children of the kingdom would be cast out. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were of the Melchizedek order. They knew about the internal message of Christ. They knew about it. This is why even when Abraham is told to take his son up the mountain and sacrifice his son, sons and daughters are always a representations of the desires of the emotions and the desires of the mind. Okay? All right? It's always desires of the emotions and desires of the mind. Sons of men and sons of daughters. Okay? What happens here is that the children of the kingdom being cast into outer darkness, where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. Well, who were the children of the kingdom? Does anyone want to answer that? Who were supposed to be the children of the kingdom?
Israel?
Israel. Yeah, absolutely. Israel. So let's go to this. Let's go to Exodus. Exodus 19. And let's check and see what's going on here. You have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bare you on eagle's wings and brought you unto myself. All right. By the way, the entire story. Okay. Never, in the archaeological evidence have we ever found Israelites that were out there in the desert of Sinai with hundreds of thousands of bones? All right. Matter of fact, that the story of Sargon Akkad of the Akkadians, him being put in a pitch and being sent down a river, is the same story of Moses being put in a pitch and being sent down the river. Okay? These stories are mythologies that are trying to tell us higher truths. Okay? So when it talks about what you see that I did unto the Egyptians, what you need to understand, the Egyptians are a bondage. It's of the lower consciousness, the lower mindset. The eagle's wings, how I bear you on eagle's wings and brought you unto myself. Eagles are a representation of angels. Angels have wings. Eagles are a representation of the angels. What are those angels? It's the angels of light. And brought you unto myself. So check this out, all right? You have seen what I did unto the Egyptians. Lower consciousness. You see what I did to your lower nature. I severed it from the higher, all right? And you had to pass, you had to go through a passageway. This is why Aaron, in order to pass from Egypt into the promised land, he holds up a rod.
The iron rod that leads the way.
The iron rod, it's your spinal column.
Yeah.
That is the rod that leads the way. So what ends up happening is the eagle's wings, this is the angels, those are those angels of light that brought you unto Christ.
And right? Those nine plates in Egypt are the 9 chakras, 7 chakras, and the 2 in your hands. And the 9 feminine 9 feminine aspect, wisdom, faith, higher conscience, intuition is within. That's the 9 plates.
Well,
and the parting of the sea, and Moses being the rod that leads the way to Christ.
Yeah, we'll have to get into that one day.
Yeah,
we'll have to get into that one day with that, because what happens is I want you to think about something, okay? If in Egypt Aaron holds up the rod and it parts the seas to cross over onto dry land, this is that energy that goes up the spine. But what has to be fed? You have to be fed, because right after they cross over into the dry land, they go into a place called Mara, and there's a bitter tree there, and the water, well, the waters are bitter, but there's a tree there. What happens is the tree is placed into the water, and it turns the bitter waters into something good. Fresh. And there are 70 palm trees. Remember, numbers are always a representation of stuff. So the 70 palm trees are a representation of the 7 chakras, okay? But now they go from being bitter to something sweet, all right? It's just like the story of Mary Magdalene having the 7 demons and then being crossed over into something 7 good.
It's like John, the Apostle John, swallowed a book, and it tastes from sweet to bitter in his stomach.
Mm-hmm.
In the book of Revelation.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was sweet in his mouth, but bitter in his stomach. In other words, because that's the lower consciousness. Okay. The entire point of me taking you this is because, all right, let's get back on track here. I dove into a bunch of other stuff here, but Matthew 8:11 tells us that, well, verse 12, the children of the kingdom shall be cast in outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. This is your children of the kingdom, all right? Your children of the kingdom were the ones that were supposed to be unto God, kingdom of priests and a holy nation. They were to be a kingdom of priests. Remember in the book of Revelation, it says you have become kings and priests, all right? This was to be the holy nation. This was to be the foundation. These are the words which speak to the children of Israel. And how were they supposed to be a kingdom of priests? If you obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then you shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. What happens here? This is not talking about something physical. Because remember,
your flesh, your vessel, your body vessel.
This is your body vessel. And they were to take this message out to the people and say, hey, this message is for all of us, in other words. Which is why when Jesus sits here and says the children of the kingdom shall be cast into outer darkness, he's talking about Israel because they didn't understand or get the kingdom of heaven message.
Matthew 8, verse 11, right?
Matthew 8, verse 11.
Right.
And as we already seen, lo and behold, the kingdom of heaven message was to enter within yourselves. All right? So if the kingdom of heaven message was to enter within yourself, and this tells you that they were to obey the voice of God and keep the covenant, it would be something within them. This way they would become a peculiar treasure unto all people, and they could take this message to the entire world. This is why when Jesus is at the beginning of his ministry, he says, the kingdom is at hand. The time is at hand. It's always at hand. It's at hand in every single person on the face of this planet. All right? So now that we got that, now that we realize that, Matthew chapter 13, when it talks about, in verse 47, about the parable of the dragnet, we know that it was cast into the sea, lower emotions, it was gathered of every kind, good and bad. But then at the end of the world, it's not the literal end of, first, it's a kingdom of heaven message. So if it's the kingdom of heaven, it's talking about within you. So the end of the world is the end of your world. It's the end of your carnal understanding, your carnal representation. The word last days actually comes from the Buddhist text, and it means the lotus or the lotus flower. You know what the lotus flower? It's the 144 petals of the chakras. The 144,000 lotus petals that flow throughout your body. All right? So when the good and bad vessels are brought, it will be at the end of the world. The angels shall come forth and sever the wicked from among the just. The angels or the angles of light will sever the wicked from the just. Just like how the 7 demons were ripped out of Mary Magdalene, the wicked was ripped out so that the just could be replaced. Just like when passing through the Red Sea, Aaron held that rod up, and when they got to the other side, there were bitter waters. The tree was thrown into the waters, and they went from bitter into becoming something sweet. Tree is always a representation of the spine as well, okay? But it's the waters of life that have to flow up, all right? You see how all these stories are connected? There's nothing that's outside. It's all about the sun descending and the sun ascending. Every single day we get this story in creation. It's a matter of coming into harmony with creation and sitting there saying that, hey, you know what? Maybe I need to pick myself up and I need to become a part of this creation story. In other words, okay. So those severing of the wicked from the just, it's the representation of that. And shall cast them into the furnace of fire. What's that furnace of fire? It's transmutation. You have to go through the fire. You're going to be cast through the fire because John the Baptist baptizes with water. Christ baptizes with fire and the Holy Spirit. John the Baptist is down here. Christ is up here. What happens is there has to be a way that's paved. So when we look at this, the abyss is your stomach. Out of your belly shall flow rivers of living water. John 7:38, which is fascinating because John 7:38, 7 plus 3 is 10 plus 8 is 18. 1 plus 8 is 9. So it's the number of consciousness, John 7:38. And when that happens, what will end up occurring is, as it comes up, it will be transmuted into fire, but it has to go through the branch or the spinal column. hits the fire. Once the fire's here, it has to cross over the bridge, almost like Rainbow Bridge or the mediator, in order to get to the throne room right here. Once it gets to the throne room, there's 12 cranial nerves on each side, 12 negative, 12 positive. The 12 negative have to bow before the 12 positive. The 12 positive cranial nerves are a representation of the 12 positive aspects of the disciples. The 12 negative cranial nerves are the 12 negative aspects of the disciples. What happens at the end of the day, both sides, the 24, have to bow down before the throne of God. And then the 4 living creatures have to bow down. And what are those 4 living creatures? All 4 of these aspects. The physical, Ephraim, which is the intellect, the emotions, and the spiritual. They all have to submit themselves unto the throne of God, which is the pineal. You see how it operates throughout our body? It's so beautiful. It really is. It's the freaking story. So, but I want to make this like a 3D model representation of all this too. And like put like the Bible verses next to it and stuff. I got a lot of ideas. Let's put it that way. So does that make sense for everyone? Okay. Now, notice this. There and shall cast them into the furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Why is there no wailing and gnashing of teeth? Let's go back to Matthew 8. Because clearly the children of the kingdom shall be cast in outer darkness, where there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Why? Because they're going to dwell in the lower abyss. They're going to dwell in that lower nature. They're always going to be like, oh my God, I better believe in this or else I'm going to hell. I remember in myself how much hell was actually in my life for believing that I was going to a place of eternal torment if I didn't believe in something specific. It's like, it was like the worst feeling in the world. It really is. But authenticity operates at a higher frequency than even love. Okay. Does anyone have any questions before we continue on? Anyone want to say something? No? Good. Okay. So now what and Rosie said she felt the exact same thing. Same thing. Yeah, Missy, go ahead, grab some coffee. If you guys want to take a couple of minute break, we can always do that as well for about 2 to 3 minutes. Then we'll come back together. Does that work for you guys? Because I'm going to go grab some coffee myself. All right. All right, guys. I'll see you in about 2 to 3 minutes. Actually, it's 11:15 right now on my end. Let's meet back at 11:20. Does that work? Okay, cool. Sounds good, you guys. All right, guys. So, okay. Okay, so what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to jump into a story that a lot of people have issues with, um, especially when it comes to the scriptures. And a lot of this stuff just, it doesn't make sense when we look at some of it. All right. So, first and foremost, what we need to look at, let's go ahead and jump to, first off, I need to share my screen. We're going to jump to Genesis 22. Okay. In Genesis 22, this is the story of when Abraham actually sacrifices his son, or told to sacrifice his son Isaac. Okay. Now, when looking at this story, most people sit there and say, oh, yep, Abraham took his son up the mountain and was just doing what God was telling him to do, getting ready to sacrifice his son. Let's put it this way. If you were told to sacrifice your son, you think God would come. All right. Let's put it that way. All right. It doesn't make any sense. Matter of fact, the only reason why Jesus, the whole story of Jesus dying on the cross for the people is because, like we were talking about in Exodus chapter 19, God wanted them to become a kingdom of priests. Instead, they went to animal sacrifice. They went to blood sacrifice. They took the kingdom of heaven message. They turned it inside out. They took animal sacrifice. They made it real. They took all these things, made it real. That's why when Jesus comes back, he sits there and tells them, you guys never listened. You guys just, you thought all this stuff was external. You thought it was all physical. You think I'm going to be a physical king, and because I'm not going to be a physical king, you're going to kill me for it. All right, you're going to unalive me for it. So now we got to look at the story of Genesis 22, Abraham sacrificing his son Isaac. All right, verse 1 of chapter 22. And it came to pass after these things that God did tempt Abraham and said unto him, Abraham. And he said, behold, here am I. Okay, first off, this word tempt, it's not the right word that's being used. All right. It's actually called forth. It's to call forth someone. All right. Now, and he said, take now thy son, thine only son, Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah. All right. So, first and foremost, let's go ahead and think about this. Take now thy son, thine only son, Isaac, whom thou lovest. The man and the woman. The woman is a representation of emotions in Scripture. The man is a representation of the mind. Paul says that the woman is to be subject unto the man. He's not literally saying a woman is to be subject to a man. All right. He's trying to tell you an inner dialogue and story of an esoteric truth. He's trying to tell you that the emotions are to be subject to the mind. And that's exactly what it is. Our emotions are not supposed to get riled up and rattled. You know, that's what religious people do. Their emotions get riled up. I mean, we're sitting here on Sunday. It's almost 11:30 a.m. You could bet your bottom dollar there's people in church right now that are are crying and getting wrapped up in their emotions, and they think that it's God speaking to them. Okay? So what ends up happening is the man is the mind, the woman are the emotions. The sons and daughters of man and the sons and daughters of the woman are always desires. So what this is telling you, the son Isaac of Abraham is actually the desires of the mind. All right? The desires of the mind. And he wants him to take him into the land of Moriah. Moriah means the place of the chosen. All right? And offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I tell thee of. Mountains are always a representation of elevation. It's always a representation of going into higher consciousness. But there's always a reverse side to this as well, because there's always an inversion on things, okay? Just like there's an inversion to something being built out of stone and something being built out of brick, okay? Something being built out of stone, which is lively stones, is supposed to be a foundation that is natural. It comes naturally. Something that's built out of brick, what the heck? How the heck did you do that, Rosie? Do you guys see that? She like drew on there. Are you like you got your paint option on or something? All right. So, okay. That's interesting. The scarlet thread. All right. That's what that is. That's the scarlet red thread. All right. So, what ends up happening here is this burnt offering sacrifice. You know what? I think that leads us into something, actually. Yeah, give me 1 minute. I think, thank you, Rosie. I appreciate that. All right. So the burnt offering on the mountain, it's a representation of the higher consciousness. So Abraham is being told by God to take the desires of the mind, get thee into the land of the chosen, and give a burnt offering on the mountain of elevation. Abraham rose up early in the morning and saddled his ass and took 2 of his young men with him and Isaac his son. Now, I want you to think about this. Abraham rose up early in the morning. What happens early in the morning? The sun comes up. The sun is rising. And when the sun rises, this is a representation of Aries, because Aries exists up here. So what ends up occurring is he takes his son Isaac and claves him to a piece of wood for the burnt offering and rose up and went unto the place of which God had told him. So wood in the Bible is always a representation of the astral realm. You have 4 elements in the Greek and Hebrew understanding. You got earth, water, air, fire. This is why Paul says we shall meet the Lord in the air, because the air shall take you to fire. Then finally, the 5th element is the renewed mind. But these elements also work alongside the Chinese elements as well, except air is not air in China, it is wood. This is a representation of the astral realm. So when it talks about wood being taken to be taken to a burnt offering sacrifice, the sun rising, the sun rises. The desires of the mind are to be taken up to a high mountaintop when the sun is rising. And the wood that is being claved for the burnt offering is the representation of you lifting yourself up into the astral realm. This is why in the Song of Solomon it says a chariot that's made out of wood. Chariot is a representation of ascension. The wood is a representation of being lifted up into that astral realm. So he goes into the place that God tells him to go. He goes up into that high mountaintop. Then on the 3rd day, Abraham lifted up his eyes. He lifted up his eyes. His eyes were lifted up, and he saw the place far off. Okay? So what ends up occurring when Abraham gets here? He has a burnt offering sacrifice. He has his son Isaac laid upon it. And he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and they went both of them together. All right? But here's the thing. Isaac says unto Abraham, my father, here am I, my son. I am here. The desires of the mind, I am here. My desires are here. Behold the fire and the wood. The fire, remember, the fire rises, the water to fire, and then Isaac, which is a representation of the desires of that mind. But where is the lamb burnt offering sacrifice? God will provide the lamb. God always provides the lamb, but the lamb is of a burnt offering sacrifice. It's something that has to happen, but it only happens through God. It can't happen through you. You can't do it yourself. You can't force it to happen. What has to happen is the desires of the mind that are being lifted up, taken to that place of higher consciousness, will be set on a piece of wood in the astral realm, and then the burnt offering sacrifice takes place at that place where the lamb sacrifice takes place, where Aries is, where the sun rises, and at that place, that's where you will see God face to face. Okay? So what this is talking about discipline. This is talking about a place of meditation, a place to come to where you think that you have to do it yourself, but God will provide it for you. Okay? Abraham thought he could do it himself by unaliving his only son. He thought he was going to be able to do it. You can't do it. You can't do any of this. You got to let God do it. This is why it says in the Bible, be still and know that I am God. All right?
So in other words, let it happen naturally. Kundalini.
All these stories, all of these stories are stories about meditation.
So like
every
when it says you can't do it yourself, like God do it for you. That's why he says, be still and know that I'm there, hear my voice. So that basically means let it happen naturally.
Yes. But you try to force it. You'll try to do it yourself. You'll do it because you think that God is speaking to you. God never asked for animal sacrifice. Jesus says that God doesn't desire animal sacrifice. He desires obedience. I desire mercy and not sacrifice. Okay? So ultimately, what ends up happening is you lift yourself up. What will end up occurring is it's not something literal, it's something spiritual because the kingdom message is within you. Matter of fact, I want to show you guys this right here. Okay? I want you to go ahead and see this. Let me see if I can. Okay. Right here. And the angel of God, think about this. The angel of God said unto Gideon, he's speaking to Gideon here. This is Judges chapter 6. Take the flesh and the unleavened cakes and lay them upon this rock and pour out the broth. And he did so. So what Gideon is doing, there's a rock and he's laying animal flesh out. He's laying all these food substances out, unleavened cakes and this broth. And what does the angel do? The angel of the Lord put forth the end of the staff that was in his hand and touched the flesh and the unleavened cakes. And there rose up fire out of the rock and consumed the flesh and the unleavened cakes. This is the burnt offering sacrifice. What happens at this point and what happens here is that when there's an animal, when there's something within you that is laid upon this rock, the only thing that needs to happen is an angel of light needs to rise up from the bottom base and hold up the staff, which is the rod. That's the spinal column. And when it's held up to that rock, well, it will consume it because that is the burnt offering sacrifice that has taken place there. It's not you doing the work. Notice how it's the angel doing the work. You can't force it. You can't do it. God has to do it. All right? It's the same way with when Moses was in the wilderness. When he holds the staff up to the rock, there's water that pours forth from the rock. Because when he hits it, he's told to speak to it the second time. He wants to hit it the second time. And when he hits it the second time, he can't go into the promised land. The staff that he's holding up to the rock it's the spinal column that leads to Peniel, the rock. All right? This place. All right? This is all over the Bible. This is the burnt offering sacrifice that will take place. All right? This is where it occurs. So, let's go to Genesis 28. Genesis chapter 28. And Jacob, and we can get into the depth of all these stories, but I'm trying to show you guys a couple of things here. And Jacob rose up early in the morning. Okay? There's that early in the morning bit that Abraham had as well. Remember, he rose up early in the morning. Okay? And he took the stone that he had put for his pillows. It was upon his head. The stone was upon his head. That's where a pillow goes. This is where the rest. Oh my God. This is where the rest is. What, like, how in the hell? I just want you to think about this. Why would a stone ever be good as a pillow under your, you would have a headache afterwards. It's not something literal. It's telling you that where he laid his head, it was as a pillow because this is where the rest comes from. This is where the rest, you can sleep in this place. You can be at peace in this place. This is why at this place, Jesus says, take no thought. You don't take a thought because this is the place of rest. This is the Sabbath. But what does he do? He sets it up for a pillar. What's that pillar? I mean, Melissa already knows what this pillar is.
The spine.
It's the spinal column. It's the spinal. But what happens? Poured oil upon the top of it. Because the oil, what happens is the colostrum oil has to come down in order to be risen back up. Mm-hmm. Ascending and descending. Okay? This is what Jacob is telling you right here. And then he tells you here in verse 22, and this stone, which I have set for a pillar, shall be God's house. Oh, man, shall be God's house. You're God's house. You're God's house, not something physical, something spiritual. And all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give the tenth unto thee. Okay? We talked about this last week. Tithing is not something literal. It's not something about giving to a church or anything of that. It's about giving the 10% of your mind to the right side. All right? Giving that intellect over to God. Now, with this understanding, when you begin to realize this, we know that Jesus said Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob would be in the kingdom of heaven. And we know the kingdom of heaven is within because Jesus makes it clear that the religious leaders weren't letting people go into the kingdom of heaven, neither they were going in themselves. So if Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are going into a kingdom of heaven and they understand that it's within, all of these stories are about something within you. All of them. You see, it's only until we get up to Moses that they tried to make it literal. They tried to make these literal stories. I mean, like we just said, when you put a stone under your head as a pillow, that doesn't make any sense. There's things in the Bible that just don't make sense. It's because what it's trying to show you is that, hey, you know what? The more off the wall something is in the Bible, stop trying to take it literally, but it has a deeper meaning behind it. Okay? So that's what we wanted to talk about with that. So now when we go back to the story of Genesis 22 with Abraham rising up early in the morning, just like Jacob rose up early in the morning, saddling his ass. Okay, now here's the thing about saddling an ass and camels. All right. Now let's go ahead and think about this. Camels are a representation of something that is traveling from camels hold water, okay? They hold water in their pouches. They travel in the desert with water, okay? They're traveling from
those rivers of living water, yeah.
Yes. They're traveling from one destination to the next. Matter of fact, that's what we get in Genesis 24 when Abraham told his servant Eleazar to go find a wife for Isaac.
And it took two young men with him. The two young men are or like the hemispheres of your brain and the two serpents within of the
Well,
kindling, and his son Isaac, which is within him, I guess, and clove
well,
the wood for burnt offering and rose up at the belly of your heart flowed rivers of living water. Yeah.
so the two young men, okay, remember Abraham was going to do this. He was going to unalive his son. All right. These two men that are actually there with him, two is a representation of duality. Okay. It's a representation of a split. It's not a representation of unity. The two men in which he takes with him, it's a representation of the desires of those emotions. He's an emotional state. There's something that's splitting him in between. Okay. He's having a moment of like doubt, in other words. But he has the camels ready. He has them with the water. Okay. He's rising up early in the morning. He thinks he's going to do this by faith, but he's going to try to do it himself. But God's the one that will provide the lamb. Okay. God's the one that's going to do this. He's going to lift himself up to the astral realm, but he's going to try to provide the sacrifice himself. When all God says is, hey, wait, just wait for it. Matter of fact, go to Song of Solomon. I think it's chapter 2 right here.
Would you say that two young men, since it's men, would be desires of the flesh and not the emotions?
Mind. Sorry.
And making a sacrifice?
Yes. Desires of the mind.
Okay. Or would that be flesh as well? I'm just asking because, he's making a sacrifice. Like that's a fleshly,
Well,
mindset.
let's think about it. It's almost like the sacrifice of the flesh is a good thing. Okay. What Abraham is doing here by thinking that he can ever offer God a sacrifice in his own works and his own will, what's happening here is this is something else that's going on. He's trying to it's by his desires, it's the desires of his mind, his intellect. He thinks he's going to work his way to God through what he thinks he understands.
Right. That's what I'm saying, I guess, because I'm not saying sacrifice of the flesh is bad. I'm saying the fleshly desires are what you have to sacrifice in order to be good. So the two young men would represent the desires of the flesh.
Desires. Yeah. Yes.
Well, you said young men would be
yes.
Mind, or to me, that's the same as flesh. Ego, mind, flesh. Young women would be emotions. So that's what I was kind of basing it on.
Okay, so my intellect and emotions exist over here in the Northwest. Where Dan lies is where this is why the tribe of Dan is a representation of the serpent. This is why the serpent was in the Garden of Eden. It was a representation of emotions. Only when you have your emotions and only when you have a point of contact with that can good and evil enter into the garden. Only at that point. You have a choice to make. See, if God didn't love you, he wouldn't give you a choice. But yeah, if we look at it, but we also have to realize that both of these on this side, actually all three of them, in actual reality is a representation of just your flesh. This is almost like, oh wow, this is like the parable of the sower. The three seeds that are bad and the one seed that's good, in other words, but there has to be like a unity between them. This is the thorny ground seed, the wayside seed, and thorny, wayside. God, what the heck's the third? Thorny, wayside. I can't think of the third, but all I know is that the good one is good ground. It's in Mark 4:11 or Mark chapter 4 or Matthew 13. How the flip did I forget that? All right. Anyways, what ends up happening is it could be a representation of that as well, because the kingdom of heaven's within you. Remember, this is a representation of these traits of you, and I'm sure we could find clarity for that. You notice how Jesus always works with things like in fours? Like you got like the four horsemen, the four living creatures, the four cardinal directions, the four tribes. You got all of these things, all right? You always have a representation of these fours in the Bible. Okay? The four cardinal directions, everything, all right? So now there's a reason why I was saying this, though. Is it Song of Solomon, chapter 1? Might be 3. Because what happens is you're trying, okay, here we go. All right, let's check this out. By night on my bed, I sought him whom my soul loveth. I sought him, but I found him not. I will rise now and go about the city in the streets and in the broad ways. I will seek him whom my soul loveth. I sought him, but I found him not. Where is broad ways talked about in the Bible with the words of Jesus? Straight and narrow is the way that leads to life, but broad is the way that leads to destruction. You're not going to find God in the broad ways. You're not going to find him in the city of the streets. Christ was crucified in the streets. That's what the Bible says. He was crucified in the streets. Because the broad ways is religion. So you're not going to find God in a broad way in religion, in the intellect of your mind, in the desires of your mind, in the desires of your emotions. You're never going to find God there. So now we understand that in the broad ways I will seek him whom my soul loveth. I sought him, but I found him not. The watchmen that go about the city found me, to whom I said, saw ye him whom my soul loveth? It was but a little that I passed from them, but I found him whom my soul loveth. I held him and would not let him go until I had brought him into my mother's house and into the chamber of her that conceived me. Oh, well, that's interesting. That's talking about Mother God. That's talking about, you see, you guys remember last week when we were talking about the 7 ewe lambs, those feminine lambs, the feminine aspect, the chakras. The mother's house is a representation of your body. It's a representation of you rising up in your body. You can't find God in the broad ways. You can't find him there because that's where religion dwells.
Where is this to? Chapter 3 in Songs of Solomon.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Absolutely. Now, when we look at this and when we begin to understand this, what we can see is that you can't do it by religion. You can't do it by your mind. You can't do it by your intellect. You can't do it by your emotions. Abraham could not take his son up there and think that he was going to give a sacrifice to God and he was going to do it himself. God would provide the lamb because the lamb that God provides is Aries, which exists right here. This is where the burnt offering sacrifice takes place. This is where it happens. It doesn't happen in some broad way. It happens in the narrow way. And what's the narrow way? The spine. It's the column. It's the pillar. The 7 ewe lambs, the well of Beersheba, which is the well of the oath of the 7. It happens in the inner depths of your being because this is where the well is. This is where the abyss is. You have to dig into it. And once you dig into it, that's only when the 7 will arise. Out of your belly shall flow rivers of living water. So the entire point to this is understanding and realize. You see, here's something else here I want to show you, okay? Let's think about this. King Solomon made himself a chariot of the wood of Lebanon He made the pillars thereof of silver, the bottom thereof of gold, the covering of it of purple. Wait a minute. Chariots don't have pillars. What? Why is it saying that there were pillars on a chariot? Because it's not talking about something natural. It's talking about something spiritual. The chariot of the wood, the chariot is the ascension process. The wood is the astral realm in which you dwell in. The pillars of silver is the consciousness of man, or that lower consciousness. The bottom thereof is gold because it's God's consciousness. And then the covering of purple is the wisdom that comes with it. And it's paved with love for the daughters of Jerusalem.
Do you see purple auras around people?
I mean, yeah. I mean, you could see orbs, auras, photon. These are photons. This is light particles. It's, when we really look at all this, we think it's supernatural when someone's being healed. All right. Or, oh God, that's supernatural that person was healed. Jesus never healed anyone, though. It only happened because of the person's faith. But if you're an electrical grid system and your body is an electrical grid, that means when someone comes into contact with you, there's an electrical charge coming off of that person to hit you, and it's almost like recharging a battery. Okay. It's almost like recharging yourself. Because remember, if we're atoms and we're made out of protons, electrons, and neutrons, then it could only make sense that we would work with an electrical current. Okay. So now what we can see here is we can see a chariot of wood. We can see that it has silver, the bottom thereof of gold, and the covering of it of purple, the wisdom. The midst thereof being paved with love. Like, if this is literal, how can something be paved with love? Love? It's talking about something that's of a higher nature, a higher essence. For the daughters of Jerusalem. Jerusalem is always a representation of that holy city. The daughters are a representation of those desires. It's the desires to go into the holy city. All right? It's the desires to lift yourself up into that holy city. And what happens? Go forth, O ye daughters of Zion. Go ye forth, desires of the chosen. And behold, King Solomon with the crown wherewith his mother crowned him in the day of his espousals. The crown chakra, where his mother crowned him, because it's the mother's house, in the day of his espousals and in the day of the gladness of his heart. He's being crowned with a crown of glory. All right? He's being crowned because right here where we can see it, you can't find God in the broad ways. You can't find him in your intellect. You can't find him in the desires of your emotions. You can only find God in the straight and narrow path, and that is which leads to life, which is that spinal column, which is that raising of the Kundalini energy. Call it what you will, because all chakra or shukra in the Quran means is the communication centers. It's going from one communication center to the next. But finally, when you do find him, here's the beauty of it. It's not a he. It's the mother. You see, religion tells us that it's a he. Religion tells us that it's a patriarchal dominance. But the truth is it's the mother's house. And they took that out of the Bible because it's a feminine aspect. This is why in Revelation chapter 1, Christ is wearing a girdle. He's wearing a girdle upon his paps. Men don't wear girdles. He's coming into contact with this feminine aspect, his feminine nature. Okay.
What is a girdle?
What is a girdle? You don't know what a girdle is?
No.
It's a piece of clothing that women wear. Men don't wear girdles.
Oh, right.
Okay. Upon his paps. Paps are breasts. All right.
Yeah.
So I mean, my God, it's crazy. It's not talking about something literal. It's talking about the feminine. That's why it becomes the mother's house, because it's feminine. That's why it's in the chamber
Feminine
of her.
9. Feminine 9. Feminine fem 9. Fem 9.
There you
Feminine
go.
9.
Breaking down the words again.
Yeah.
So I think we pretty much covered all of Song of Solomon chapter 3, just within like 10 to 15 minutes. It all relates back to these stories. All right. So you can't find God in the broad way. You got to find him in the narrow way. Jesus says, straight and narrow is the way that leads to life. Broad is the way that leads to destruction, is religion. Then we can see that when you find him, it's not a he that you're actually finding. It's the mother's house and then the chamber of her that had conceived you. And then in verse 5, it says, I charge you, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, by the rose. O ye daughters of Jerusalem, desires of the Spirit by the rose. Roes are fish eggs. Fish eggs. That's what a roe is. A fish is a representation of God. An egg, within the egg is the yolk. This is a representation of consciousness. This is the God consciousness. All right. And by the hinds of the field, a hind is a female deer. Okay. That ye stir not up, nor awake my love till he please. You see, what ends up happening here is what we begin to realize and understand is that you cannot wake God up and you cannot try to make him come to you. He has to come to you. This is why Jesus comes like a thief in the night. All right. Jesus comes like a thief in the night because you don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. If you get in your inner closet, you meditate, it's going to happen. Okay. This is why when you go back to Abraham and you look at what the heck he's talking about here, he's trying to do something through his own works, but God will provide the lamb. God will provide the lamb because the lamb exists right here. And this is where the burnt offering sacrifice takes place. Because once this is hit, once it raises up the pillars and the stone is hit, once the stone has the food laid upon it, and the angel with his staff, just like Judges 6, says that it consumes it with fire, that is when the burnt offering sacrifice will take place. That's when your mind will open up. That's when you'll realize that it's not about your intellect, it's about the spiritual nature and the kingdom of God within you. So whenever you see rods, whenever you see staffs, whenever you see pillars, whenever you see all these different things, it's the spinal column. It's always talking about the spinal column because there's always going to be something with a stone that is attached to it, which is why the Bible says in the Gospels, the stone in which the builders rejected. We created these bodies. We manifested from non-physical into physical. And what do? We use our hands, we use our feet, we use our mouths to talk. We use our eyes to see. But what's the one part of our body that we don't use? Pineal. Pineal. And that leads us back to Matthew chapter 6, verse 22, which says, the light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? No man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. You cannot serve God and money. You can only serve one or the other. Now, money isn't bad. It's the love of money. Money can be a tool. Money can help you with the poor. Money can help you with multiple things. I believe this verse right here was actually specifically speaking to those hypocrites, which are the stage actors, which are the Pharisees, which we have them today. All right. It's Hollywood. It's the entertainment business. It's all these people that sit there and they want to influence you and they want you to be like them because they're holding you in your lower nature. If your eye is evil, if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. This is where the weeping and gnashing of teeth happens. It's outer darkness. It's because it's never been activated. If your body is the temple, what good is a house without the light on? But then check that out. In verse 25, therefore I say unto you, take no thought for your life, what ye shall eat or what ye shall drink. Take no thought. When you get to the point where you take no thought and you already know it's all going to work out, when you get to the point where you can enter that place of rest, just like when Jacob laid a stone under his head as a pillow, when you can take that place of rest, which is at Peniel, then that's when you'll wake up and you'll realize. So I think this is a good place to call it today, as it is. Does anyone have any questions? Does anyone want to say anything? Anyone want to talk?
Oh, I feel warm in my belly already. And heart.
It's so beautiful.
It is.
It's just so, like, everything, just when it all comes together, it's the story about us. That's what it all comes down to. Does anyone have any questions? Anyone want to ask anything? No? What do you guys think? It's a lot. You might have to go back and look at some of it because a lot of, you see, it's kind of funny because, you know, I was in Michigan and I was hanging out with my family. I went down to my grandma's, my mom's mom, and I was talking to my grandma, and my grandma was telling me about her and my mom were a part of a church called Unity before she actually left that church and she went to the Pentecostal church with my dad and stuff. And she talked about Unity. This was the only time I ever heard about Unity Church. She shows me a magazine on it and I'm listening to it as it is. I come home and the next day I'm on a live and a guy comes on the live and he's like, "Hey, have you ever heard of a book by a man named Charles Fillmore called The Revealing Word?" And I started looking it up while we were talking. I was like, "Is this by Unity Church?" He's like, "Yeah, exactly." I was like, "My grandma was just telling me about Unity Church yesterday." So this book, it's a companion guide to actually show you these metaphysical terms. All right. It's what it's trying to show you is that the Bible, the guys, give me 1 minute. All right. Here. This book right here, okay? This is the first Bible I ever received. This book right here is not a literal book. This is the Helios Biblios. This is the solar sun book right here. When people try to make this literal, it's because they're trying to see something through their literal eyes. But Jesus says you have to have eyes to see and ears to hear. You have to understand that this book, if it's a spiritual book, if this is a spiritual book, why are we trying to make it literal? We can't. It's not possible. I'm in the 12 apostles with the Son of God in the middle. It's a representation of the zodiacal wheel with the Son of God in the middle.
So God Ministries, that's why you named your group after.
I named that like quite a few years. I didn't know it was going to lead up to all this. So I just know that this was meant to be, honestly. But this is what I wanted to say. So in the zodiacal wheel, you got a bottom half and an upper half, okay? Bottom half is darkness, 6. The upper half is the light, okay? In the throne room of God, in Revelation chapter 4, you have 2 seraphim that are around the throne room of God. The seraphim each have 6 wings. 6 wings on this side, 6 wings on this side. It forms the zodiacal wheel. The left side is the darkness. The right side is the light. But the throne which exists in the middle, Peniel, where this is, This is where you want to enter ultimately to get to the right side. This is why the veil had to be torn. And this is why the left side is always a representation.
That's why there's 12 petals on the heart chakra, because 6 is the left, on the left is evil, and the 6 on the right is good.
Yes, but
6 is 12.
It's because of the intellect.
That leads up to illuminates your pineal gland.
Exactly.
Which is, by the way, is 2 wings, two petals united as one.
Yeah. Impossible coincidences. 222. Yep, absolutely, Deion. It's so beautiful when we look at it, but it's not so we sit here and we think that in the throne room of God is just complete light. Okay. No, that's not true. Because it's always the right hand of God. Jesus always holds the keys in his right hand.
And sits on the right hand of God.
He sits on the right hand of God. We sit on the right hand of God. All right. Left hand is all. It's just do not let your left hand know from what your right hand is doing. All right.
In other words, do not boast your good deeds for the world to know, because it just makes you look like a stage actor.
Right. And don't let your intellect overcome the spiritual. Okay. There's a split down your body. Okay. The split down your body gives you your right and your right side. The truth is, always throughout the scriptures, Jesus is talking about the right side being eternal life. Left side is a representation of that darkness. That's where the intellect dwells. That's where the black horse dwells. That's where Ephraim dwells. Whereas
and the white horse is on the right.
Always the right. It's white and black.
It's just like I said in my last video, TikTok, that the tarot, as in tarot cards, is the Torah that lives within, the law that lives within. It's just and good and right if it's inwardly. So right. When I look at the high priestess tarot card, she's got the black pillar and the white pillar. That's a representation of the dualistic nature that needs to be reconciled back to the right. So
Yep. Exactly. It has to be reconciled back to one another ultimately. But there's this entire process that's going on.
This is why I still don't eat pork or shrimp or crab meat. Not anything against those that do eat it, but I don't eat pork anymore. I don't eat shrimps, shellfish or anything like that. I eat cod every now and then. I eat beef, chicken, and lamb. I don't eat goat meat or anything. But it's Easter, so I just
yeah. So, all right. Does anyone have anything they want to say, or any questions, or anything? Is this making sense to you guys?
Yeah.
Is this okay? Cool. Ali, you were talking about getting into the plagues. We'll probably get into the plagues here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Because even when the firstborn is being killed in Egypt as like the 10th plague that's happening, the firstborn son that is actually being killed, we already talked about how Isaac was getting ready to be taken up the mountain, Mount Moriah, to actually be unalive. It's a representation of those desires of the mind. All right. That's where it exists within Egypt. All right. So this is why Jesus, it says, I have called my son out of Egypt.
Because like Egypt lives within us.
Egypt lives within us. It's the lower abyss. This is why we talked about this last week. When Abraham offered, well, it was actually Abram, offered his wife Sarai to Pharaoh, he said, hey, don't tell Pharaoh that you're my wife. Tell him you're my sister. Okay. Because Egypt, which is the abyss, Abram was basically saying that, hey, tell Pharaoh that you're my sister, not my wife. Tell him you're my spirit and not the emotions. This is what people do. They get their emotions and their spirit nature mixed up. And because of this, what ends up happening when the lower abyss realizes that this is not the spirit, but this is the emotions. That's when the plagues come. And that's when the plagues come upon the lower being. What will end up happening is you'll start getting discouraged. You'll start being, oh my God, I thought I had faith. No, you didn't. You were just operating out of your emotions. That's all it was. Okay. So that's the difference between, this is why in 2020, there were a lot of people that like converted, but a lot of people are still stuck in those religious ways.
Some people are stuck in a 3D matrix where they think they can get all the help from the NHS, the police, or the government. Yeah, I'm not saying NHS and government and politics is bad, like, but most of things in politics is bad. And you go to NHS. I wouldn't go for NHS or private hospitals unless I really, really, really need to. But I wouldn't go for COVID vaccines and a bunch of medications that I might not even need them. But like, if it's something serious, I'll take medication. But it's not going to affect my lower. It ain't going to affect my vibrations, is it?
No, no. So the thing is, you got to remember, condemnation is of the enemy. All right. You're not condemned at all. Matter of fact, the truth of the story is this, is that when you really begin to realize it and you begin to understand what is really going on here, when Jacob wrestled God and he became Israel, Israel means he who wrestles God. He overcame God. I want you to think about that. How do you overcome God? Because you bring God under your command, because those angels now exist. Those angels of light now exist under your command because you have now become the head and not the tail. All right? Paul tells you that. He says, you are not the tail, you are the head. All right? So now that you have become the head, you have now become one with Christ, you can now control the angels. You control the nature within your being of not only your spinal column, you can call things as though they shall be through manifestation. You can do these things. You can say, go get them, guys. Go get them. We could change the world. That's the entire point to this. But
we could flip the world upside down if we wanted.
Now, this is something else. Just because it says follow the man with the pitcher of water in the age of Aquarius, he never says what time to follow him. So some people will sit there and say, oh, you know what? Because each cycle is like 2,160 years or something of that nature, each age, each symbol. And some people will be, oh, that's not going to happen until like 1,000 years from now. He never says that it happens at the end of the Aquarian age. Okay. Matter of fact, the sign of his coming, the sign is Aquarius. And we're at the beginning of Aquarius. Right? So now is the time. Now is the time to manifest these things. Now is to realize all these things come together.
Beautiful.
So, yeah. All right. Well, if anyone has any other questions, or if anyone wants to say anything. Lawrence, you enjoying this?
Yes, I was just about to say, I'm just enjoying every minute of it.
Awesome, man. I'm telling you, once we look at the scriptures this way, there's no way of going back. There's no way of going back. So,
Are you doing a series on a Revelation? You were mentioning that last time.
Yep.
But,
Yep. I'm going to start doing that here probably in the next week or two.
looking forward.
Yeah. I'm going to start doing that on YouTube as it is. I'm like I said earlier, I'm probably going to have to tear down those Zionist deception and the seed of the viper videos, you guys. The first videos I did, because they're coming back to me like 4 years later saying that it's hate speech and stuff. So I'm like, who in the hell is watching my videos from 4 years ago? So it's just ridiculous. It really is.
It's AI bots. They got scanning the videos now.
Really?
Oh yeah.
My God. Yeah. I'd talk about Donald Trump in there too. So the twin messiahs and stuff. So Ashley has her hand up. What's up, Ashley?
Okay, first of all, did you guys know you can raise your hand? I didn't know that this whole time. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Hi guys. I just wanted to know when we get into the plagues, if we do that, to me I'm thinking the nine plagues are like the nine known planets, right? And I even watched a YouTube series that talked about how each plague was basically a direct insult to one of the Egyptian gods. And so I thought that would be like an interesting way to look at it. Like the plague of frogs is for their like frog goddess and like the river of blood. But then I also think about the nine red heifer sacrifices that already happened.
Mhm.
And then the 10th is supposed to be, what I think would be, but it's supposed to be, the ultimate one. I was just thinking about that with the nine. I think it does have to do with like the planets and then having like a direct insult to each one of those by bringing the plague and then being the most high after that.
Okay. Yeah,
That
it's
was
just
it. And then we have an eclipse on October 2nd. And like the last time this went down is when, the war in Gaza popped off. So just keep an eye. Israel's a Libra rising, and so this kind of Libra energy affects them
uh-huh.
like we saw last year. So that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good, Ashley. We'll have to jump into there's a bunch of different routes we could go with the 10 plagues of Egypt because even the 10 plagues of Egypt are a representation of the plagues of Revelation too, if we actually look at it. It's all a mere effect. And the plagues of Revelation being a reflection of the plagues of Exodus actually lines up with the 7 days of creation. And then we have the seven seals, and we got the seven vials, seven trumpets, seven thunders. There's a bunch of cool stuff we can look at and tie in with all of this stuff. So, oh man, um, son of a gun.
Still filling up my water.
Yeah.
3 water filter jugs.
Wow. Okay.
And if I can turn my camera around.
There was something I was gonna say. Can't remember. But
I've got a shower filter head, by the way.
oh nice, okay.
And
That's actually like the one with purified water or something?
yeah,
Really?
that one
Nice.
it filters out the toxin out of the water. And I've got this as well, water filter for when I brush my teeth. And I use toothpaste that it's got fluoride free. That hasn't got any fluoride in.
Nice.
And I'll phone up my Southwest water supplier and ask for a quality of the water. I looked at the toxins. It's got nickel metal in and other shit that comes with it.
Oh, nice.
It's
Yeah,
horrible.
so
Heavy
Deion
metals.
said something. Deion said something. October's full moon on 10/17 at 7:26 a.m. Strong 726, Harpazo. Second coming equals 726. Revelation equals 726. Yeah, all these numbers matter. It's just, I think some big things are going to happen for the collective. What I mean is for the collective, because there's even people that like, they were so rooted in Hebrew roots that I know on TikTok. They were so rooted in Hebrew roots that like, they're like a couple of years ago, you would tell, yeah, the kingdom of God is within you. They'd be like, what does that even mean? They're like, Jesus is coming. And nowadays are like, guys, the kingdom of God is here. It's within you. So I think ultimately all of us are going to wake up to this. A lot of us are going to wake up to this, I believe, here very soon. A lot of people are going to wake up to this here very soon. Some people are going to still sit there and say that it's a deception. The problem is that you have to tear a lot of scriptures out in order to get your agenda. So you might as well just not even believe in the Gospels. Might as well not just believe in the Bible at all. But what is so wrong with going inside yourself and you have something within you that's actually there and it's a gift? I mean, people will sit there and say, "Oh, you know what? God didn't create your flesh. That was Satan that created your flesh." Actually, Jesus says, you fools, you come against the one that created the outside of you as well as the inside. All right. The Bible says that. He tells you that. But some people will sit there and say, oh, you know what? That's not Jesus speaking. That's the Christ speaking. Well, you might as well just say the Christ is speaking all the time at this point. You might as well talk about 3 verses in the whole Bible. All right. So there's always going to be people that are going to sit there and say, "Oh, I have the full truth." And I'm not saying by any means we have the full truth, but I'm just trying to show you that this book, it's the Helios Biblios, it's the Sun book. It's a book that's trying to tell you spiritual truths, and the
It's
only
the living book that lives within.
Exactly. It's the living book. It's within you. It's a spiritual book. It has everything to do about your body, and you have to have eyes to see and ears to hear.
Do you
And
know
the
what you're talking about waters like? When I'm talking about as far as I have living waters within me, I want to have fresh waters outside of me. So like when I filter out my water, right, it clears up and it's good for your overall health. I
yeah,
feel better when I filter out my water now. Like in long toothpaste, even though we're talking about physical things, but spirit can manifest in the physical. Like
right,
you just,
right, exactly. So no, it's important. Your body is a temple. All right.
yeah.
So, all right, you guys. Well, I pray that this was a blessing today. I pray that this helped you. Um, that ultimately we can just keep on continuing forward and we'll keep on going. And here in the next couple of weeks, we'll get into the plagues of Egypt. If there's anything you guys want me to touch on, just let me know. The Song of Solomon, as you can see, is a very esoteric book. It's a very spiritual book, and it doesn't make any sense any other way. Because, like I said, chariots don't have pillars. Okay, so it's all spiritual. This is a spiritual message. It's the living message, and yeah, let's just keep on going. We'll do this again, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time next Sunday, as it is. And guys, if you want to as well, Missy has some really good meditations on her YouTube, as it is. Mary Magdalene and Yeshua meditation. I actually went through them. I didn't get through all of them, Missy. I have to be honest with you. But the ones I did feel relaxed. I felt very calm. And I felt like my mind was opening up and my imagination was actually getting stronger. And what does the word imagination mean? I, Magi, nation.
I
It's
make our pagan, led by the spirit.
it's the so basically what I'm trying to get at, Ali, it's the nation of the magicians. All right. Magi nation, I Magi nation. It's the land of the magicians. All right.
Land of pagans. I am a pagan. I am a witch. I am spirit. I
We're
am the high conscience.
we're all spirit. We're all spirit. And at the end of the day, we're all gonna
And
realize
the
that
scriptures cannot be broken.
the scriptures cannot be broken. You got it. And that's why
TikTok won't let me download my live from last night. So I'm gonna have to download it in clips and then piece it together because it was such a good meditation, I think. So I'll put that
yeah,
on my YouTube soon. But
yeah, yeah, that
TikTok's
was
gatekeeping.
yeah, it tends to do that. I don't know what it is, but even when Ashley was jumping into my lives, so like it happened like 2 or 3 times. Every single time we recorded something, it wouldn't upload. It's weird. I don't know what the heck's going on there. But
Yeah.
all right, you guys. Well, bless you. I hope you all have yourself a great day, and we'll just keep on fighting this good fight and going forward. And
seeking the kingdom within. Missy, I'm gonna watch your meditation videos after this.
Wonderful. Yeah, check them out. My favorite, they're meant to be done in order, but if there's any that you like, absolutely do the first one to kind of give you a base work. And the very last one is like, I call it the forgiveness chamber. It's incredible. If you have any grievance with anybody, like go into the forgiveness chamber with them, and it's the very last one. So check them out. They're meant to be inner union. Thank you, Joshua, for bringing it up and giving the reference there. And Deion for your feedback. I appreciate it. But yeah, they're for inner union and inner wholeness.
Yep. Let's just continue to go forward, you guys. Deion said he has a gematria based channel. If anyone is interested as well, said that in the comments. So I'd be interested in that as it is, because numbers just so important. I mean, even the serpent in gematria is the same as Mashiach or Christ. 358. They're both 358. So, all right, guys. Well, bless you. I love you. You guys have yourself a lovely and great day. I think I'm going to do some more studying myself. May go to the gym here in a
358. What does that mean? Christ.
Yeah. That means Mashiach.
Right.
Yep. So, all right. Blessings. I love you. And we'll talk to you soon. All right.
Be blessed all.
Love you guys.
Love you.
Thank
have a
you,
good week.
guys.
Love you
Have a
all.
great week.
See you
All right,
next
guys.
Love you all.